And the Bucs hope that this will be their first victory ever.
We have a great area, growing area, in Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Sarasota, Bradenton, Lakeland, and Winter Haven, and even Wauchula. Over 2 million fans, and it's the fastest growing area in the United States.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Live from Tampa Stadium. For the first time ever in a regular season, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers enter the stadium with numbers in both the win and loss columns. The Buccaneers came onto the field to a wild standing ovation from the some 60,000-plus fans at Tampa Stadium. They did not introduce any players individually. The PA announcer said, "Ladies and gentlemen, your Tampa Bay Buccaneers."
Welcome to San Diego, California. Super Bowl 37. It is Tampa Bay versus the Oakland Raiders.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon, throws up the middle. It's intercepted at the 40. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25, 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, baby! Boom, boom, boom! Yeah! Tom Brady signing with the Tampa Bay Bucs tomorrow. Holy hell. Tom Brady going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's going to be a tough team to stop, I think, at this point.
He said, you know what ring is my favorite one? My favorite ring is the next one. Everyone always says, why the Bucs, man? Why'd you choose the Bucs? And it was a no-brainer.
Brady has all kinds of time. Throws toward the end zone. It is a caught ball. Touchdown, Tampa Bay, Mike Evans. 8 seconds, 7 seconds. Brady to throw. Throws a deep pass downfield. Got Scotty Miller in the open. Makes the catch. Touchdown, Tampa Bay.
Here's the snap out of the gun. Play action fake pass to Gronkowski. He's going to score a touchdown. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Holy guacamole. And the Buccaneer Nation will celebrate. And I want to hear cannons.
We do.
I want to hear cannons.
For sure.
And I think we are going to hear cannons. If I got to do the boom, boom, boom myself. Bucs win. Bucs win. Bucs win the Super Bowl 55. Tom Brady engineers the offense. The Buccaneers score late in the first half, early in the second half. And then the cannons come. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them. How about the Buccaneers, huh?
This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty. Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
I want to hear cannons.
We do.
I want to hear cannons. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing
them. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football remain undefeated in Raymond James Stadium for the 2021 season. They advance their record on the year to 7-3 and get back to their winning ways with a pretty solid performance in a 30-10 win over the New York Giants. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host, the Philly Bucs fan himself, Mr. Evan Wanish. And you got to feel good about that win. By no means was it perfect, but it was head and shoulders above what they put on the field last week. And a good way for the Bucs to get back on track here to start the second half of the season.
Yeah, like you said, not perfect, right? But not everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows. But really a lot of encouraging signs. Still some things they got to clean up, obviously. Could have easily scored more than 30, but we'll get into it. But yeah, it's a win's a win, and really, yes, it wasn't maybe as dominating, but it also didn't really feel like the Giants ever had a chance. Really, like when it was 10-10, sure, but when the Bucs retook the lead 17-10, it didn't really feel like the Giants had a shot after that. It felt like the Bucs kind of closed the door, which was nice to see.
Yeah, and I think looking at all the takeaways from this game, the biggest thing we'll probably gripe on were some of the mistakes in the first half, which is exactly why this game felt closer than it should have been for that entire first half. The Tom Brady interception, which his 8th on the year, and just another
hang on
another one of those picks that you absolutely love. And I got to tell you, I think it accounts for like 4 of his picks on the year by this point. What are you thinking?
It's just so I'm sitting there and I just started. I had a smile on my face when they picked that ball off, because I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "This is happening again." Oh man, yeah. I can't help but smile anymore. These interceptions are so stupid.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, man. Like seriously, back-to-back weeks now.
The tipped pass off of Mike Evans' hands, and we take a look at Brady's performance. Look at the box score. What he did tonight: 30 for 46, 307 yards, 2 touchdowns, that 1 interception. But I'll tell you, he had a great start. Came out, went 9 for 9, I think 10 for 10, pretty much perfect in that first quarter.
That's the best start he's had as a Bucs quarterback, by the way.
Yeah,
that's the best start he's had.
He was a man on a mission throughout this game, aside from the interception. And I'll tell you, we saw the return of dual threat Brady this week too, huh? Out there breaking ankles, dodging tackles, picking up 1 rush for 10 yards. I'm telling you, this man, as a rusher on the ground, I think still has like the highest yards per carry average in the NFL. It is not funny. Tom Brady for MVP is still a solid campaign despite the pick tonight.
Yeah, I mean, would you rather have Tom Brady or Lamar Jackson as a guy who can run? I don't know. It's up for debate, right? I mean, what was impressive about that run too is that, like, if he had to make the guy miss, because if he could have got tackled there and he would have been short. So he had to make the defender miss, and he did. And then he gets up and he starts pumping the crowd up and stuff. Like, if you couldn't get hyped to that, you're either dead or you're just like a Brady hater. So.
Oh no, I was screaming in my house. I mean, I live in an apartment complex, so once a week, usually my neighbors have to put up with me being a rambunctious asshole for about 3.5 hours. But I was hype as hell. That was probably the highlight of the night for me, was seeing Tom Brady rip something off like that. But let's take a look at the Buccaneers offense as far as what their day looked like. Your leading receiver, Mike Evans. What a night for him. We'll talk about that here shortly. 6 receptions for big number 13, 73 yards and a touchdown. Your leading receiver for the evening. And a historic night for Mike Evans. He gets the one that he's been looking for. Touchdown number 72 of his career, which passes Mike Allstott for 71 and makes Mike Evans the greatest touchdown scorer in Buccaneers history, as he now holds the record for franchise touchdowns. Listen, dude, I mean, this isn't an earth-shattering take at this point, depending on who you ask. I think some of the old-school guys might take it the wrong way, but in my opinion, Mike Evans is already a top 5 Buccaneer of all time before the end of his career. Yeah, I know. I saw the look on your face on that one. I'm curious to see what the live chat thinks, but I think I think Mike Evans is already a top 5 Buccaneer of all time. And I think by the time his career is done, if he maintains and finishes his career in the red and pewter, maybe a couple of creamsicle games dashed in there couldn't hurt. But, if he finishes his career as a Buccaneer and makes the Hall of Fame, I mean, before he even makes the Hall of Fame, it seems like he's a shoo-in for that already. But I think he could be the greatest Buck of all time, if not the greatest offensive Buck of all time, because a lot of people already consider him that much.
Yeah, I mean, you
seem shocked.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I just don't think he's top 5 right now. Like,
so who's your top 5 still?
I mean, I think you got to go most of the 0-2 team. Obviously, you can't put Brady, because as much as I love Brady, he hasn't. Anybody that puts Brady, yeah, sure, but he did that in the Patriots uniform. Yeah, sure. What he's done with the Bucs is spectacular, and he probably is a top 15 Buck.
I think he's top 10. Truthfully,
yeah, he might be top 10. Yeah,
I think he's floating around top 10.
Yeah, which is like insane because he's only had a year and a half. But you can't put him there. But man, I mean, you got Derek Brooks, you got Warren Sapp. Obviously, those are the 2. I think you have to have the man who was just honored tonight, John Lynch, maybe somewhere in there.
Yeah, he is a Hall of Famer now.
Rondé Barber, I think you got to have him in there just because he spent his entire career as a Buck as well.
And then Mike Evans. I like the list, man. And then Mike Evans right after those four guys.
I don't know, man. It's tough. It is. I think he's top 10 right now. I don't know if he's top 5. I do think if healthy and everything, obviously we can't predict injuries and stuff or any type of circumstances, but if he remains healthy, I think he could be top 5. I don't know if he'll be the best ever, just because that's like Derek Brooks spent his entire career with the Bucs, like he was the guy. But and Leroy Selman, I'm forgetting him too. Like the first ever. I mean,
the OG.
I don't know. It's tough. It is tough.
Yeah, I think it's going to.
He's definitely the greatest receiver they've ever had.
Yeah, I think the conversation
that's already established.
Yeah, he is the greatest receiver in franchise history. There hasn't been anybody better. But I think when it's all said and done, and he finally hangs up the cleats, the conversation will be a lot different. And I think he'll be a top 5. Hell, if not a top 3 Buck of all time. I mean, when it's all said and done, which hopefully is, another 10 years from now. But let's take a look at the
he's
offense.
Only what? 20, he's only 28, right? I mean,
yeah, 28, 29.
It's not like this guy is, it's not like he just got the touchdown record and he's not 32 years old.
Yeah, he's not in the twilight of his career. Which definitely gives him the benefit in the long run. He's going to be in the Bucs record books for a very long time. So let's take a look at what else this offense was able to do tonight. Not only were they able to, start to get the ball rolling again, Brady was looking sharp, but he was able to get the ball to just about everybody. I mean, everybody caught the ball tonight. Rashad Perryman had a couple of receptions. Cam Brate had a couple of receptions. Here's a big one. The return of Rob Gronkowski. I was kind of curious what he would look like in this game. He was able to get back to practice this week after trying to give it a go in the Saints game, and he was just hurting. His back was not up to snuff. And he goes out there and has a great night. 6 receptions, 71 yards. And I'll tell you, having Gronk out there and seeing the way that this offense was able to operate, especially when it comes to the short game, they really like having a guy like Gronk out there, and you could tell they were hurting without him.
That's a healthy Gronkowski.
Yeah.
What you saw in New Orleans, I'm not sure. I think it was a complete idiotic to put him out there in New Orleans based on how he looked versus how he looked tonight. I don't think he's 100% still. It was a major injury. I don't think he's 100%, but he's good enough. And it was really nice to have him out there, and he made a lot of impact plays. He's not 100%, but I'm not saying he's like 50%. He's probably, 85%, 90% ready right now, I think. But yeah, he definitely made his presence felt and was I think I saw in the chat, a nice kind of security blanket there, which obviously the Bucs have really lacked since week 3. And they really missed him, and it was nice to see. Thought he might get in the end zone tonight. Didn't happen. Yeah. I knew Mike Evans was going to get in the end zone. I knew that. If you guys listened to the preview show, I said to go on Bet Online and bet on a Mike Evans touchdown catch. So if you guys did, that's free money. You're welcome.
Yeah, there you go.
But
hang your hat on that one this week.
I can. Yeah, but it was nice to have Gronkowski out there, and a healthy Gronkowski, because you could tell that was a completely different player than the one that was in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah. And I think a good indication of how he was feeling to be back out there as far as, how ready he was. There was one hit that he took that he kind of shook off, but it was after he had taken a catch right over the middle of the field. And he wasn't really left out to dry, but there was basically a corner coming downhill on him. It's almost like the DB, when you look at the replay, he kind of didn't want to tackle Gronk. I think any guy who's probably 50 pounds less than he is runs into that and is like, I don't really want to tackle this guy, but here we go. But he was able to shake that one off, and honestly, it looked like it was going to be a pretty big hit, but he looks good, and glad to see him back out there in a bigger role than I thought he would be. So, like you said, 85 to 90% healthy sounds about accurate. Hopefully we can see him end up in the end zone next week on the road against Indianapolis. Another guy who shined tonight for the offense, wide receiver Chris Godwin. 6 receptions for him, 65 yards and a touchdown. And I'll tell you, man, Chris Godwin, I didn't think this would become his bread and butter, but those screens to CG are really starting to pay off. I don't know if it's taken a little while for them to really start to get momentum, but whenever I see Chris Godwin on a screen, it usually good things happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you want to go to that well, because eventually teams are gonna, they're gonna start jumping those, and that's not gonna work. But
Well, I mean, the short passes, play calls like that last week or what left them dead in the water on offense, it felt like. But I think there was an extra layer of creativity sometimes on this offense when it came to play calling. I thought the first drive of the game.
God, they did an end around with Mike Evans.
With Mike Evans, dude. I mean, hold on. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had 8 total rushers in the game tonight. Brashad Perryman had a carry. Mike Evans had an end around, which I might need a stat check.
Before.
I feel like that's Mike Evans' first career carry, which is, pretty historic considering the night he already had on top of it. But Chris Godwin got a couple of carries. Tom Brady, we talked about, the dual threat, came back this week. He picked up a first down using his legs. Like, everybody got a piece of the pie tonight, and they were definitely getting creative at times with this offense, which was also refreshing to see.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like 8 different rushers. Like, what are we, the 49ers?
Yeah.
What is this? Yeah, but it's honestly crazy. Yeah, it does appear that may be Mike Evans' first rushing yard of his career.
Wow.
Because in Pro Football Reference, as far as Pro Football Reference goes, when you go to his career and it shows all of his career stats, it shows all of his receiving, and then it goes to rushing, the page is blank. So that may be the first one of his career. So good for him.
Yeah, man.
Good on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like you said, I mean, and they ran it twice in a row. It was the one to Godwin, and then the very next play was the one to Evans, which he almost bobbled, but he kind of had some butterfingers in that, I will say.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people weren't too happy with him after the pick.
The pick, but then he also had that one catch he bobbled. He ended up catching it, but I don't know what was up. But he was, he was good where he needed to, and this is how this offense should look without Antonio Brown. It's a different offense with Antonio Brown. We know that, and they're trying to survive. And I think a lot of guys really stepped up tonight. I mean, you saw Cameron Brate, you saw OJ Howard. OJ Howard actually caught the first pass of the game.
Yeah.
You saw Brate, you saw Howard, you saw Perryman, you saw Tyler Johnson, you saw Jalen Darden out there. Like there was everybody really getting involved. And it's nice to see. And I mean, Leonard Fournette didn't have any egregious plays. Didn't really run the ball that well, but whatever. They're not a running team, but he caught the ball out of the backfield, which is what you can ask for him from that. And,
6 receptions for Lenny and 39 yards. So he was definitely in the mix catching the ball this week.
Yeah, I mean, what did you say? Gronk had 6 catches. Mike Evans had 6.
Mike Evans had 6. CG had 6. Lenny had 6.
Yeah, I mean that's how this offense should work without Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
When Antonio Brown's not there, that's how this offense needs to work. And it may not be as explosive, which it wasn't as explosive tonight, but it should be efficient still. And that's exactly what they were tonight. I wouldn't call them explosive. I would call them efficient.
Yeah, and let's face it, as far as the Bucs are concerned, when you ask guys like Tom Brady and Bruce Arians in their post-game presser, they're going to tell you they left points on the field, and they certainly did. I think there were a couple of points where, the one turnover, I think it was the Steve McClendon interception, and we'll talk about the defense who really carried this game in the second half here in a minute. But as far as just mistakes go and not leaving points on the field, you can get away with that against the Giants, which is fine. They won by 20 points tonight. A win is a win. It felt nice to not have to survive against the worst team in the NFC East this year. So they were
we were all on here saying it's gonna be close, and
they were able to put them away pretty definitively in the second half. But it came after some mistakes, which we're going to talk about here really quickly. I just want to talk about it because we kind of have to, right? When it comes to better teams, you still got the Buffalo Bills on the season. You still got New Orleans again at home, which helps. Yeah, your next game is Indianapolis, who just absolutely brought it to Buffalo today. Yesterday. Hopefully Jonathan Taylor doesn't find himself in the end zone 5 times. Good Lord. But let's talk about these mistakes. And I think the reason it was as close of a game as it was in that first half. So the end of the first half, I'll tell you the one that I think was the most egregious. And this one is, NFL officiating at its best. Just another one of those weeks, I guess. But end of the first half, the Bucs were driving down the field on a crucial third down. Tom Brady takes some time, finds Chris Godwin over the middle, and Godwin does his thing, the Yak King on this team. takes it all the way down to the 1 yard line. I thought it was a touchdown for sure, but they mark him down at the 1. There's a flag on the play. It is a holding call on Tristan Wirfs, which, again, is open to interpretation. I mean, this one was
you tweeted the
pretty rough
picture. You tweeted the picture of the Bucs guy shooting himself in the foot with the flag.
Yeah, that was before I saw the slow-mo replay.
Yeah, well, that's embarrassing for the league. Okay, that's egregious. Like, that is terrible. Okay, I'm not even really gonna hold the Bucs to that. Like, I'm not gonna. Obviously, it's a mistake, right? But like, I'm not really gonna hold them to it. It's just not. It's terrible. It's literally terrible. It cost the Bucs 6 points. It
cost them 3. It cost them 3 because, after the 10-yard penalty, it's 3rd and 20, incomplete pass, and they're forced to punt because they're out of field goal range. So, at the end of the first half, when you're trying to separate yourself by that much more, some points there would have been great, and it's a shame that a call like that just forces them to punt and not get anything out of it.
Yeah, it's just, just brutal. I mean, a great play by Brady. Better, great play by Godwin, and it's a shame that got wiped out because it was just, I'm fine with a penalty if it's an actual penalty, but that was terrible. I mean, that was awful. But you're right. You're right. They, after the Steve McClendon interception, 3 points. I believe after the Mike Edwards interception, I think they got 3 points. Been having trouble getting into the end zone, and like I said earlier, they could have had way more than 30. They could have gone over 40, which they've done a lot, at home this season. But it's something they got to correct, and against the better team next week. Like, we keep talking about, the Bills or the Saints. No, the Colts, man, they're one of the hottest teams in football right now. I mean, they're hot.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I mean, you look at their record; they are 6-4 at this point in the season.
I believe they're 6-5. I think,
but they had a pretty rough start, all things considered. So the way that they've really been able to rally and then beat a quality opponent like Buffalo, just like you said, the way that they did with Jonathan Taylor having a day on the ground, it's one of those things where not only is it any given Sunday, it doesn't really matter what the record is when you're on the field. But now that this is a team that's starting to gain some momentum, not only are they, trending on the right path, but they know they've got the Super Bowl champs this week, and they're going to be looking to play their best game of the year.
And the Bucs have been just brutal on the road. So it's, it's crazy. Tony points out, my frustration that I don't want to acknowledge this anymore. Like, it hurts me personally to have to acknowledge all the dumb luck interceptions that Brady has had this season.
There were, I think Tony said it too, but there were quite a few that were like, just drops off a guy's hands that could have been intercepted. There were 2 or 3 more tipped passes tonight that, were dangerous territory.
Yeah, It hurts. It hurts. I think in my head I counted. It was just in my head. I hadn't looked, but I think the numbers are right. It's 4. The Leonard Fournette screen week 1, the Hail Mary week 1.
Yeah.
Which was also tipped. The Hail Mary was tipped. Then the one versus Washington,
Jalen Darden.
The one versus Washington, which should be a fumble, not an interception, but whatever. And then this one. Yeah, I have to look at the ones in New Orleans. I'm not sure about every single one. But obviously the one versus Philly and miscommunication. But yeah, at least 4. So he should have 4 picks right now on the season, and instead he has 8. So yeah, just whatever. I'm ready to move on though. It's a win. I'm trying to ignore it, and it's just so annoying.
Hey, well, we're on to Indianapolis. So let's go ahead and talk about the turning point of this football game. I think we've covered everything about the offense. They really did what they needed to do. If there is one takeaway,
it wasn't perfect, but it was very workmanlike.
Yeah, the running game wasn't crazy, but you did see a little bit more of Ronald Jones this week, which was nice. He also found himself in the end zone. But I think Leonard Fournette had something like 10 or 11 carries, and Ronald Jones just under that. Both of those guys combined had 60-some-odd yards. But it wasn't groundbreaking by any means, but it got the job done. Just like you said, very, blue-collar football-like. There were some times where it felt like they were really trying to control the clock and chew things up. a lot of the short game was working tonight. The screen passes every now and again. Leonard Fournette got a couple of good screen passes his way. And just some creativity every now and again with the play calling was also nice. So the offense did its thing as far as leaving points on the field. Not going to be acceptable against better teams, but all you can do is just get better when the time comes. So we'll see what next week holds for them on the road. Let's talk about the second half of this football game, where I believe the defense just absolutely took over and finished this thing. 2 interceptions against Daniel Jones. The first one was probably the most exciting pick of the year. Steve McClendon ends up with the football. Holy hell, how did that happen? I believe it was off of the pressure from Devin White.
Yep.
And Devin White actually probably partially responsible for both of the picks tonight. Let's talk about it. Let's give him his roses really quick. We talked about headed into the Washington game, a guy on this defense who needed to step up was Devin White. And he had a solid game against Washington and carried that same pace tonight. He was absolutely wrecking shop. While it didn't show up, the sacks weren't necessarily there for this pass rush. I think Devin White was a big part of why Daniel Jones was uncomfortable, and he without a doubt felt pressure throughout the whole game.
Yeah, he's really like shot out of a cannon on a lot of plays tonight, and he responded well to a terrible game in New Orleans with two really good ones. 2 really good ones in a row here. So obviously last week it wasn't really talked about much because it was a loss. So it's tough to talk about, especially with the way they lost with the 11 play drive and everything, or the 19 play drive. Sorry, I tried to give them credit. And taking off that much time off the clock, and just, it's tough to give, I think, any defensive player too much credit last week. But this week, he played really well. I don't even think Steve McClendon knew what was going on. He's not even really in the play. Like he's not in the play, and he just turns, and there's just a football there. Bottom line, Daniel Jones is terrible. I can't believe that the Giants are going to go into another season with this guy as their quarterback.
And that, I think we are grateful, because if I'm a betting man, which, if you are, head over to BetOnline.AG, but if I'm a betting man, it seems like the Giants are going to keep this kid around, and the schedule makers love this matchup, so I wouldn't be surprised to see the Buccaneers take a road trip up to New York in 2022.
No, they can't.
No, they can't for real.
Yeah,
okay.
they can't. So
well, thanks for
they don't play the NFC East next year,
so,
and the only way they would do it is they're going to play the NFC East opponent of the same standing, so it'll be the Cowboys most likely.
Got you. I see. Okay.
So yes, after 5 straight years, they will not play the Giants next year, and it also looks like they will not play the Bears next year, which they've been on a streak of doing as well. So
I guess it's a relief, because I'll tell you, whenever they do play the Giants, there's such a large population of people from New York who love to come to Florida and then talk about how much they love New York and just remind everybody that that's where they're from. I went to Ybor City today, just had to run some errands, grabbed a bite to eat out there, got a slice of pizza, which was very good. And I brought my camera with me, did some, photography stuff, walked around, took pictures, wasted time for a couple of hours. And the amount of Giants jerseys that I saw, and man, were these people obnoxious. Every time they saw one another, I mean, this guy could be across the street a block away, and it's, hey! Yeah! You know what I mean? Just some weird mating call that they had going on. So I'm glad that I don't have to see that filth in my state anymore. But sorry if we have any New York natives in the chat. I'm not calling you in particular filth, but if you come waving those blue rags around every now and again, then yeah, it's kind of gross.
Real quick, just looking at the chat. So he said, anybody seen Shaq Barrett lately? I don't see him doubled yet. Not many pressures. I mean, he's been leading the league in pressures. And tonight, when he was against Nate Solder, Nate Solder had a rough night because him and Jason Pierre-Paul really dominated Nate Solder. I mean, it didn't stand a chance. Shaq Barrett was mostly against him in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
But also, and we'll get to this, but you didn't see as much of Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul in this game as you did in weeks past, which is another reason why I think the defense was so successful. You saw some other players in there. So Shaq Barrett, I thought, played fine. Last week he was invisible, which we talked about. But as far as on the season, he's been he's been really good pressures wise. It's just he hasn't been able to get to the quarterback lately. But last year he had trouble getting to the quarterback too and was able to turn on in the playoffs. So let's hope it's the same story this year.
Yeah, man. As we look at the pass rush and some of the other guys that were involved, it was nice to see a healthy dose of Joe Tryon out there. He got a couple of pressures as well. I think got involved in some run plays, but I'll tell you,
he was all over the place. I was going to say
there was a
one more thing. He might have been their second best defensive player tonight.
Yeah, I think that's great because I'll be honest with you, there was a comment made, and I don't remember which coach said it, but it went something along the lines of, we're going to play the guys who get paid the most.
Larry Foote.
Yeah, the reason you're not seeing Joe Tryon is because JPP and Shaq are getting paid what they are, so they're going to get more reps. And a lot of people looked at that idea, and they're like, man, that's a terrible idea. Because I think common sense tells you that every now and again, even your highest paid edge rushers are going to need a break. And we saw that happen with Jason Pierre-Paul. He's been battling injury throughout the season, so even though he's not going to want to come off of the field, some rest is always going to do him good. And when you have a talent like Joe Tryon, the more reps that guy can get, the better. So it was definitely nice to see him get involved tonight. I mean, even towards the end of the game, after Blaine Gabbert was in, it almost looked like a preseason game on defense. I think Cam Gill got involved in a sack. That's something you really only see in the preseason. But it was good to see some fresh faces every now and again down there. It kept the pressure fresh and honestly seems like a little unpredictable just because of the different traits that each of those guys carry.
Yeah, Joe Tryon was all over the place.
Anthony Nelson got a sack too. I know it was kind of garbage time, but he was another guy who was rotating it.
Yeah, just Joe Tryon was on another level, and hopefully this means that he'll be getting more playing time. But he was, he was all over the place. He chased down Saquon Barkley on one of the plays, which is not easy to do. It was an impressive night for Joe Tryon. And I mean, he almost had a sack on Dan Jones. Jones was somehow able to stay up and just threw it incomplete. But yeah, really nice night, really encouraging night for the rookie. And hopefully this means more snaps for him in the future. And when they drafted him, I talked about, and I've been talking about it for years. It's why I've always said that they've needed the number 3 edge rusher. It's to keep Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul fresh. And this is the type of game I was talking about. In the second half, I don't remember many times when both Shaq Barrett and JPP were on the field at the same time. I don't remember many series when they were. And that's nice to see because, you didn't need them to. It's time to rest up. It's getting close to the playoffs. You're going to be playing in November, and in December, you're going to be playing some cold weather games. And it's time to start to rest up and get ready for the ones that really matter down the stretch. And that's why having an effective number 3 edge rusher is so important.
Yeah, for sure. As we take a look at the rest of this defense, I want to talk about that second interception. Mike Edwards stepping up, and then the return of Sean Murphy-Bunting. Early on in the game, definitely seemed like they were targeting SMB.
Which was expected.
Yeah, that's something we talked about headed into the game. But I thought he definitely held his own and had a much better game than I thought he was on pace to have after that.
Played a lot more than I thought he was going to.
Yeah, I mean, he had that big brace on his left elbow, which is probably going to be a fixture for the rest of the season. But it was definitely good to see him back there because it felt like this secondary had an answer for things more times than not. And, just seeing him get back up to speed is always a good sign too.
Yeah, and I mean, it was nice to see him out there. And I thought the defense as a whole, they really need this game. They needed this type of game. Look, the Giants scored a touchdown. They start at the 5-yard line, and
they threw it to Andrew Thomas.
Yeah, any defense is going to, any defense is gonna give that up. I'm sorry, any defense is gonna give that up. So, DP on third downs kill us. You mean I don't know. I think you're referring to. I think there was one on Murphy Bunting and one on Dean.
There was one on Murphy Bunting, one on Dean. There was another one that was. I think they, the 2 penalties basically crossed each other out, and it was a no call. But
no, I mean there was the one where they got tangled, and that's not a penalty,
right? Yeah.
Deep down the field on that when Kadarius Toney threw it. But. The one against Murphy Bunting, Nate Solder jumped off, had a false start. They didn't call it, and instead it's a pass interference.
Shout out to our guy, Mr. Bucs Nation, really quickly with the $2 super chat. Says, good stream, boys. #GoBucs.
Yay.
Don't be so bitter.
Hope he's feeling better. How about that?
Yeah,
okay?
man. I gotta tell you, a quick shout out to our guy James Hill.
Well, that's a little far.
Hashtag content guy. So James has been under the weather, and like he told me he was sick a little while ago. I kind of forgot about it. I actually asked him today if he wanted to go to Ybor with me, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm at home resting," and I totally forgot. But like, he told me he was sick. I checked in on his live stream, and no offense, James, he's a trooper because he sat and he did his entire reaction stream, all 3.5 hours of the football game. But dude, you sounded terrible.
Sounded like crap, man.
You sounded, oh man, you need a NyQuil and to go to bed, my friend. But yeah, hopefully you feel better soon, and thanks for the support, man. Glad to have your super chat.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Sure. Anyways, I don't even remember. See, he just derails my train of thought.
Yeah, he totally wrecked the show. Thanks, James.
Thanks a lot. James is the JPP of YouTube. Yeah, he just no matter what happens, he's always gonna put out stuff. Yeah, like JPP with a torn rotator cuff. Yep. James with a bad cold. Just it doesn't matter. They're still doing their thing. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think the defensive pass interference, were really a huge issue tonight. It's always going to happen in the NFL. Like that's what's going to happen. I don't know. I don't really have a huge issue with it tonight. It's been worse. Let me tell you that it's definitely been worse. But yeah, I thought, like I said, just the entire defense, and I don't know if anybody like played spectacular, but like. They all did their job.
Some people could say Devin White. I think he showed up more than usual.
Sure. I mean, but, like I said, just everybody was doing their job. And that's what the defense is supposed to look like. Flying around, making plays, getting turnovers. I mean, they only had, I believe 2 sacks, but they had more pressure than that.
Right. And it was the very end of the game when they got those 2 sacks. It was, I'm pretty sure it was like back-to-back plays. It was just a lost cause by that point.
Yeah, exactly. I like Tony's suggestion on what James should do. That's just listen to Tony. Anyways, just suck it up. Baloney. Suck it up and listen to Tony. You'll be fine, James. I don't want to hear these pity stories.
Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about as we start to wrap things up here. Firstly, on the injury front. Got to give a quick shout out to Aaron Stinney for stepping up the way that he did at left guard.
A tough matchup, a tough assignment. Yeah. Leonard Williams / Dexter Lawrence, not easy.
Yeah, man. That's a lot of linemen coming at you, and he was able to handle it with grace, just as he did throughout the 2020 playoff run. And I think for a guy like Aaron Stinney, it's good to get those reps because we talked about his presence maybe going up next season with possibly Alex Kappa departing. You kind of like to see Aaron Stinney get these reps. It sucks that it's at the expense of former All-Pro guard Ali Marpet, but when you have a guy like Aaron Stinney stepping in, it's nice to see that the level of drop off between your starting left guard and this guy who's stepping up to fill in is not that much. I think he had a solid game.
Yes, but also, can Ali Marpet please be good?
Yeah, for sure. You gotta. His injury status was pretty vague. I didn't really catch what it was. It
was an oblique. The bad news is that they ruled him out pretty quickly.
You're right. Yeah, it was less than 5 minutes after he was gone. He's in the locker room. They ruled him out.
But I will say they asked Arians. They didn't have any update on Marpet. They said the next day or two they'll have an update. So probably just checking things out right now. And I don't think it's going to be serious, but I don't know if he's going to play. It's a short week now in Indy. You got to remember that. So we'll have to wait and see. I think Stinney can fill in the job, but just hopefully it's not too serious and he can get back out there pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And then the other thing that I took away from this week, which is good news for Tampa Bay, with most of the NFC having a pretty rough weekend, I think it meant a lot more that the Bucs were able to go out there and win this week. Honestly, if they didn't lose to Washington last week, they probably could have done enough to snag the 1 seed, considering the luck of everybody else around them. But regardless, they are still reaping the benefits from everybody else in the conference losing. So the Buccaneers very much still in the race for the 1 seed. I think only a game behind Arizona, but
you're going to be looking at that
one loss.
Washington game.
Yeah.
You're going to be not necessarily the Rams, not necessarily the Saints. Yeah, you're going to be looking at that Washington game. Because if they don't get the 1 seed, which I don't think is likely. I don't think they're going to land a 1 seed. And I think they're going to be either 2 or 3. And you're going to look at that Washington game, and you're going to be like, oh, man. Like, you're going to be like, they really screwed the pooch there. So, yeah, I mean, it's nice, obviously, to get a win, take care of business, because yet again, they really did. They had a nice weekend again, right? Green Bay lost. New Orleans lost. Carolina lost. Atlanta lost. So all 3 division opponents lost. So that means that, their chances to win the South went up even more. Now, if you would have won versus Washington last week, the division could almost be all but wrapped up now, but whatever. Green Bay is 8-3. The Bucs are 7-3. Green Bay's obviously has played one more game. So,
do you know when their bye week is by chance?
I think it's this week, actually.
Okay.
I think it's this week. Yeah, I see Brady's Mahomes' daddy said that the Bucs have to win out if they want to get the 1 seed. I'm assuming you mean if they want to get the 1 seed. I don't know if they have to win out, but I think they can only afford to
you got to lose one more at most.
I think 1. Yeah, I think you can only afford to lose 1 more, and you have to have some. I think you have to have some luck go your way as well. So, yeah, I do think. You don't have to win out, but yeah, you gotta win them, most of them at least. You don't have to run the table, which is good, because if you look at their schedule at the end, I think they play Carolina, New York, Carolina or something. Like, they finish it out pretty easy.
It's pretty
with winnable games, but
and then you look at the 1 seed Arizona, what they have left on their schedule. They got the Rams, Seattle, the Cowboys still. So a couple of tough games, depending on what kind of situation they're in.
Yeah, Green Bay does play the Ravens.
The Ravens, man, I know they were without Lamar this week, and they ended up winning that game, I'm pretty sure. But I thought they were cooked by Andy Dalton on Sunday.
So, I mean, Andy Dalton's got their number, man.
Yeah.
Real quick before we head out, I just wanted to do this a little bit.
All right.
So the Packers' remaining schedule. Okay, actually, they do play next week. They play the Rams next week, but that game is in Lambeau. The Packers are the other team in the NFL that is undefeated. There's 2 teams at home.
Yeah, they're 4-0 at home.
There's 2 teams in the NFL that are undefeated at home, the Bucs and the Packers. So they have the Rams, then they have their bye week. Then they play the Bears, Ravens, Browns, Vikings, Lions. So realistically, you're probably looking at the Rams and the Ravens is probably the only 2 games, I think, that they'd be in jeopardy of losing.
Yeah.
I don't see the Vikings sweeping them. The Lions suck. The Browns are off this year. And then the Bears suck too. So now I want to take one look at the Cardinals as well and see what they got going on. So we don't know about Kyler Murray, but they do have the bye week this week. So this week is their bye week. But then they play the Bears, the Rams, the Lions, the Colts, the Cowboys, and the Seahawks. The Rams, tough game. Colts, that's looking like a tougher game than we originally thought, which obviously this week for the Bucs as well. And then the Cowboys. So they got a few tough ones, but yet again, the Lions, the Bears, Seahawks, all those teams suck. So,
yeah, it's crazy that we're, just a sidebar here, but kind of crazy we're talking about the Seahawks being one of those teams that suck. I know losing.
Yeah,
they're
3-7.
Losing your starting quarterback will do that, but yeah, I can't remember the last time I saw a team like Seattle sit at 3-7.
Man, I mean, I saw something. I think it might have been Mike Florio that finally tweeted out something smart. He was like, Russell Wilson wanted to get out after 12-4 season last year. I wonder what he's thinking now. Like they went 12-4 last year, and Russell Wilson was like, get me out. So Matthew Diaz brings up, I think the primetime curse has finally become the primetime charm. Let's go. And he's saying that because the Buccaneers are undefeated on primetime this season. So what was such a tough thing for them last year has now become a strength. They beat Dallas. Then they beat New England. Then they beat Philly. And now they just beat New York. So now they got one more, and that's the Saints on Sunday Night Football in Tampa, Week 15.
Well, when you bring back all 22 starters who just got done playing on the grandest stage of them all inside of their own stadium, maybe that fatigue they were feeling on primetime in 2020 wears off a little bit when you play a game that big. I don't know, man. Maybe Monday Night Football is just a walk in the park now compared to Super Bowl 55.
I will say, though, it was nice to finally get a primetime win that was, like, comfortable.
Right.
I mean, they beat the Cowboys on a last-second field goal. They beat them by 2. They beat the Eagles, but it was by 6, and it took until the final drive. The Bucs needed to get that first down and then New England game, Nick Folk had to miss the field goal. The Bucs won by 2. So it was nice to, kind of sit back and relax in the fourth quarter finally on one of these primetime games. And I know it's not the most electrifying thing, but it was nice to do it, and hopefully they can just blow the doors off the Saints in a few weeks here.
100%. So for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, back to their winning ways with a 7-3 record next week on the road for a test against the Indianapolis Colts, team that's playing pretty hot right now. But with a good week at practice and hopefully some more improvements, the Buccaneers can play their usual championship brand of football next week for Week 12. With that being said, folks, I think that's just about going to do it for this week's episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Thank you so much to all of our people in the live chat over here on YouTube.com for hanging out with us. Tony Saylor, a.k.a. Tony Baloney, Peter, Brady is Mahomes' daddy, our buddy Dub, Matt Diaz checking us out as well, Taser, and anybody else that I may have missed. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you have not already, subscribe to the channel. Plenty of great Buccaneers content throughout the course of the season. A lot of cool hype videos, which are honestly kind of my favorite thing to make here on the channel. The podcast is fun and all, but like the hype videos get me going. They get me hype, The Giants one that we uploaded.
Going.
Exactly. It's provocative. It gets the people going.
Shout out Kanye.
Yeah, man. Yeah, shout out Kanye, by the way.
Big Bucs guy.
Big Bucs fan. We almost forget to mention that Jesus himself was in the building, and I think that's part of the reason the Bucs felt so comfortable on primetime tonight. Thank you, Kanye.
Give him and Byron Kennedy all the passes they want.
Right, man.
They get all the passes they want. So thank you all for tuning in. And it's nice to get a win. And it was a win they definitely needed.
Yeah, I think getting it one that they needed, then getting it done in front of Kanye West too was just the cherry on top. So
you couldn't lose in front of Kanye.
Exactly.
There's no way.
Exactly. So yeah, the Buccaneers remain undefeated at home and 7-3 headed into next week's game. Follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan Wanish on Instagram at Bucs_daily, the #1 Buccaneers fan page on Instagram, rapidly approaching 30,000 followers. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. Last but not least, you can find myself, Instagram and Twitter, at Retticus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. So that's it, folks. This week's episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline.AG, comes to a close. We will talk to you again at the midpoint of this week for the mailbag show. So if you want to get a head start, send your questions in to cannonfirepodcast@gmail.com. We will read them and then break them down, whatever it may be. If it's a question, it's a take, it does not matter. We'll break it all down on the weekly mailbag show. And then, of course, later on this week, also expect the game preview, which may or may not have a special guest helping us break down this game between the Indianapolis Colts. Should be a good one. I am your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off for my co-host, Evan Wanish. We'll talk to you guys later this week for the mailbag show. Until then, and as always, go Bucs.